Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Welcome back to Ask Rob and Rob. We're back for the new year. We're re-energised and we're ready to answer your wonderful questions. Unfortunately, we've got two great questions in this week. Now, the new year, you've probably got lots on your mind. You've probably got big plans, big goals, but along with that, lots of questions. So if you want to get involved, get your question answered on the show, then we make it really simple for you to do that.
We do. All you've got to do is call 013 808 00035. That's 013 808 00035. Or alternatively, you can go over to thepropertyhub.net/ask. So the honour of asking our first question of 2019 goes to Neil. Let's have a listen to Neil's question.
Hi Rob and Rob, my name's Neil. I hope you guys are well. Been listening for a while, thought I'd ask my first question. I wonder if you can help me out. I currently own a property in Slough, a 2-bedroom apartment. It's right in the town centre. And I've heard a lot about serviced accommodation, and I think my apartment could be quite good to be converted into a serviced accommodation apartment. It's currently on a AST at the moment, 6 monthly review. I'm getting about £1,000 a month rent. I could possibly push it to £1,100 a month rent. The current tenants are really nice, really good, but because of management fees with the current estate agents who it's let out to, it's fully managed, and obviously service charges and things, it does bite into the profits quite a bit. So I'm thinking of trying this new model of service accommodation. I've looked into my tenancy agreement and it seems to be okay and viable to operate it as a service accommodation property. I've also spoken to a few service accommodation management companies and they said it could be viable. In fact, it's probably worth giving it a go. I'll probably just need to give a few feature walls and furnish the property. Just wondering what you guys' thoughts are about service accommodation. What do you think? I'm looking for a good cash flow and income. Do you think it's worthwhile me taking a punt or not really? It'll probably cost me a couple of £1,000 just to furnish it. But I'm looking, potentially they're saying that I could double my rental income from converting it into service accommodation. Or do you think I should just keep it nice and simple or what really? Just wondering what your feedback is. It'd be really great if you could give me some information, and you guys are brilliant and I can't wait for your feedback. So thank you very much and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, bye.
All right, thank you, Neil. Really interesting one. So I don't know a lot about the market, but my assumption would be that if you've got something pretty central in Slough, that probably is a pretty good market for serviced accommodation. But does that mean you should do it? Well, the first thing to think about is whether you can. So you said that you've checked your lease and it looks like it's okay. If that's the case, then that's a good tick in a box. Also, check your mortgage. If you've got a mortgage on your property, there's probably going to be a clause in there that prevents you from doing it. So if you do have a mortgage, go and check. If you don't, then that's fine. You can push ahead if you want to. So assuming you can, let's look at whether you should. The real key here, I think, is to run some realistic numbers and then decide whether it's worth it for you to roll the dice and give it a go or not. So if you work out the nightly rate and then you had the property occupied for every single night, then the headline figure would look really good. But have a look round, make sure that the figure you can get per night really is what you're being told you can get. Then make a conservative assumption about how many nights per month the property would be rented out for. And then don't forget that if you've got somebody managing it, which it sounds like you definitely will, they'll have to get paid. And then there's going to be wear and tear on the property as well. So by the time you factored all that in, chances are you will come out ahead of where you do on a normal long-term tenancy. But the question is, how far ahead? So if you run all those numbers and then you think you're going to get, say, £300 or £400 more per month than you otherwise would, then that might put it into perspective for you and help you make that decision. You can decide, is it worth having variability in income, having a bit more hassle, because there will be more hassle even if someone else is managing it, and having the possibility that it won't work out for one reason or another and you have to switch it back again? Is it worth it for that extra amount per month? That's a question that only you can answer, but taking the emotion out of it and putting it into purely monetary terms like that probably will help you come to a decision about whether this is something that you should give a go or not.
Wowza, strong start on Ask Rob and Rob this year. Okay, Rob, you set the bar pretty high. Let's see if I can deliver for our next hubber, who's Ben.
Hi, Rob and Rob. My name's Ben. Really enjoy listening to the show and find it really, really helpful. My question is about leasehold houses. Having listened to a number of your podcasts, I know you're not massively positive about them. And to a certain degree, I understand why, as developers have built new houses and sold them as leasehold with really onerous clauses, such as ground rent doubling every 10 years and exorbitant charges for permission to make fairly minor changes. So I get that new build leasehold houses are generally to be avoided, but my question is whether you would avoid all leasehold houses. The reason I ask is because we have just had an offer accepted on a leasehold house in the Moss Side, Fallowfield, Rusholme area of Manchester. And I believe leasehold houses are pretty common around that area. This particular house is not a new build. It was built around 1900 and has a 999-year lease and very little ground rent. We'll obviously check the lease to ensure there are no nasties in there, and if there are, we'll walk away. But I'd be interested to know whether you'd advise against buying any leasehold house, even where the terms of the lease aren't particularly onerous, perhaps because it could be hard to sell later on, or because it may not benefit from significant capital growth, or for some other reason. It'd be good to know your thoughts. Thanks.
No, don't do it. So join us next week for, oh, don't worry, Ben, I'm going to do a bit better than that. I mean, this is a really interesting question, and I really appreciate you bringing it to the show, because so many people right now will be writing off leasehold houses, and I completely understand why. I mean, we, as you say, have been pretty negative on them. And developers now are no longer trying their luck with leasehold houses. However, you found a property that was built way before all the scandal. And, like you've said, the chances are that there probably isn't anything wrong with the conditions or the terms with this particular property. So from a legal point of view, and also for your cash flow, the property is probably fine. So should you go ahead? Well, maybe. But you have to consider a few points. And you've raised one of them already, which is it could be harder to sell later on. And I think it will be. Certainly today, the reason why you've probably had your offer accepted is there's a lot of negativity around leasehold houses. That may or may not be the case in 10, 20, 30 years' time, but it's hard to say. While as an investor, it's easy to be comfortable with this situation because you should be unemotional with your decisions. But if you go on to sell it, your market may be limited to who you can sell it to, and therefore the price you can achieve is limited because owner-occupiers may struggle to get their head round it, even though it may be perfectly fine from a legal point of view. The other thing you want to check that you've not mentioned here is mortgageability. Again, even though it seems the terms of this property are okay, mortgage companies can be a little narrow-minded. Yes, that does happen, and they may just see all leasehold houses as the same thing, when really this one's very different. So check if you can get a mortgage on this property, and if you were going to buy cash, still check you can get a mortgage, because again, that's going to hugely influence the resale value in the future. So once you've checked the mortgage, you then need to take a view. Are you okay with this property potentially not reaching its full market value in the future when you come to sell it? Or is this purely a cash flow play and you do not care? If it's a capital growth play or a bit of both, then you're going to have to think long and hard on this one. But if it's purely cash flow and the mortgageability side is okay, then maybe it's one to go with.
Well, there you go. Our first 2 questions of the year dispatched. What questions have you got? We'd love to answer yours before the year is out. So do get along to thepropertyhub.net/ask to send it to us. It's really, really easy. We'll be doing it all again next week, of course. And in the meantime, join us for the Property Podcast on Thursday. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.